You once belonged to the corporation. Now, can you survive without it? Hey there friends, it's Kodiak here, one half of the team behind Legacy Gaming. Welcome back to another Ultimate Preview video. Today we're talking about The Ascent, a twin-stick style ARPG set in a dystopian cyberpunk world. The Ascent is a solo and co-op action shooter RPG. Think Diablo meets Helldivers. Set on Velis, a packed cyberpunk world, the Ascent group controls everything. The towering structure you see here, yeah, that's the Arcology, a massive corporate-run metropolis megastructure that reaches high into the sky, filled with creatures and beings from all over the galaxy. The rich and successful live a lavish life in the upper limits of the Arcology, while the poor and the weak scrape out a lousy existence far down in the slums, forced to work awful, hard labor jobs for barely any money at all. This, unfortunately, is where our story begins. As a simple worker, one day you're caught in an absolute vortex of catastrophic events, all stemming from the collapse of the Ascent group. Due to a sudden and complete shutdown of all security systems, an all-out war breaks out within the Arcology as rival corporations, gangs, and black market thugs all vie for more and more control of the now lawless metropolis. As your district becomes threatened with your very survival at stake, you take up arms and set out to discover what started it all. The world is filled with colorful, albeit largely unsavory characters, and right off the bat the team hits us with some pretty cool world building. NPCs will go about their days and won't always have a fixed position in order to help the world feel more alive, with things happening in the background based on your choices and progression in the story. NPCs that might have been friendly to you earlier on may be hostile when you return to them, and all those other NPCs in the background, they'll dynamically react to conflicts that break out, often running for their lives. Now before we get into the nitty-gritty details, let's dial it back and introduce you to the team behind The Ascent, a Swedish studio called Neon Giant. This is a small team of 12 developers, all industry vets, and all out to prove that you don't need to have massive clout to leave your mark on the industry. It's pretty clear people are buying that too, because The Ascent is dropping as an Xbox PC exclusive on July 29th, and you know what that means, it's coming to Game Pass on day one. Now we're not in the business of pushing people to pre-order or buy games on day one, but what we do focus on is the gameplay, and this team has done a remarkable job leading up to launch showing off the game with what people actually want to see: gameplay. We've already mentioned the fact that The Ascent is a solo or co-op experience with up to 4 people local or online. The game is linear, so if you only focus on the main story, the devs say you're in for around a 15 to 20 hour experience. Of course, if you wander around, pick up side quests, or just explore every nook and cranny, that time will probably extend. In a nice change of pace, the game is entirely handcrafted, with everything being purposefully placed by the developers. That includes guns and gear. That means every building, person, weapon, and secret is there by design, and that means plenty of guides coming from your friends at Legacy Gaming once the game does go live. All joking aside, it just means the developers are trying to create a more deliberate experience, and after a wave of procedurally generated games, I'm all for that. At the heart of The Ascent is the combat, as you'd expect from a game blurring the lines between multiple action-based genres. Untraditionally, in this type of game, verticality is going to play a big role in your success during a firefight. The team has said that players won't be restricted to fighting in a 2D plane, and that you'll have to take advantage of angles to get the drop on enemies. Doubling down on this idea is a Gears of War style cover system where you can hide, aim, and shoot high and low. It's a really unique feature on paper, and I want to stress that because we haven't gone hands-on ourselves. It all sounds good and sets up some of the most advanced twin-stick combat we've ever seen, but just wait, there's plenty more to talk about. Let's shift gears and focus on the other side of the coin, the RPG elements that make The Ascent feel more like the isometric role-playing games we've come to love over the past few decades. The first thing you need to know is that The Ascent is a classless game. You won't go in building a mercenary or sniper, but given the variety of skills, armor, weapons, and augmentations in the game, the team is confident that you'll be able to build your character to fit whatever playstyle you want. You'll have access to a primary and secondary weapon slot, a tactical grenade slot, and 3 gear slots that make up the head, torso, and legs. There looks to be no shortage of gear to fill those slots either. We've seen pistols, SMGs, shotguns, assault rifles, flamethrowers, particle beam cannons, rocket launchers, and a whole host of unique grenades. We can take this a step further when you consider there are also augmentations or abilities in the game, and these get progressively better as you level up and allocate various attribute points. The example the devs give is something like this. At the start, you may have an ability that fires off 4 missiles, but invest a certain amount of attribute points, and that goes up to a whopping 18 missiles. Much like Outriders, rip that game, ability cooldowns are short and are designed to be used frequently, so they'll play a big part in the moment-to-moment combat. While we haven't seen everything, and let's be honest, that's pretty standard for an upcoming game, Livid did some digging and found out as much as he could about the various progression components of the Ascent, because the truth is, that's going to help determine how deep the gameplay experience is. What we know is that there are 4 key attributes: cybernetics, motorics, biometrics, and frame. These 4 pillars determine the power of your abilities and are increased by allocating points into the 8 skills. Tactical Sense determines the amount of tactical charge you gain for damage inflicted and reduces your grenade charge-up time. This also increases your cybernetic attribute. Critical hit rate, well, determines your critical hit rate. This also increases your cybernetic attribute. Weapon handling determines your reload and weapon swap speed and also increases your motorics attribute. Aiming determines your weapon's spread recovery rate and will allow your reticle to shrink down much quicker. It'll also increase your motorics attribute. Balance determines your resistance to stun, knockback, and stagger, as well as the movement penalty for moving while firing heavy weapons. It'll also increase your frame attribute. Evasion determines your evasion cooldown speed, which is effectively how often you can use your dodge roll. This will also increase your frame attribute. Vital signs determine your max health and will also increase your biometrics attribute, and body battery determines your max energy capacity and will also increase your biometrics attribute. What I really like is that between the attributes and the skills, we're not seeing the same old tropes, and while we are manipulating the standard things like health and reload speed, it feels fresh and just a bit unique, and that's all it really takes to catch people's interest. One of these things I personally found interesting was that tactical sense skill and how grenades work in the game. Instead of restocking or finding them, you have to charge them up in combat. The higher your tactical sense, the faster you can access your tactical equipment. It's a neat swerve away from the norm and another thing that piqued my interest in the game. I should also point out that loot in the Ascent is not color-coded by rarity, something veteran ARPG players will have to retune their brains around. For example, red drops are weapons while yellow drops are grenades. It's as simple as that. Because of the handcrafted nature of all of the items in the game, the developers wanted players to go into the menus, read about the items, and figure out what things work best for their loadout. It's a small risk stepping away from something so hardwired into most players' brains. The act of finding an epic or legendary is in large part why players love these types of games, but I think, emphasis on think, we'll be able to push through. There are a few additional systems within the game, and up until this point, some have only been shown for a few brief seconds. The Grafter is an NPC that will allow you to make a few key decisions about your skills, including the ability to reset your skills for a price. The Grafter will also allow you to change your biology and style, making changes to your character's overall aesthetics, which include gender, skin tone, tattoos, hairstyle, various color details, and weapon skins. The Grafter will also modify and sell you various augmentations. Those are the abilities we talked about earlier. We've yet to see how modifying augmentations work, but we do get a peek at a few of them from this vendor. Luton summons a companion drone to help collect loot from the ground. Hydraulic Slam is a frontal cone force push essentially. Lock on Fire gives your current magazine perfect accuracy and extra efficiency. And Hyper Focus slows down incoming projectiles. Each augmentation has wildly different cooldowns ranging from 3 seconds to 36, and as you can see, they're pretty different in their application as well. Outside of augmentations, there are a few other things we've come to learn about as well, like cyber decks. You can see the character pick one up here, but we have no idea what these do within the game. Perhaps it could relate to hacking. This is a cyberpunk game after all, and this gameplay clip here does confirm that's something within the game. Additionally, we know that bounties are a thing thanks to this quick look at the menus. I mean, straight up, this is as simple as someone giving you a target, you go kill them. but is there a unique twist on that in The Ascent, and what's the reward? Weapons, armor, currency, maybe a little bit of everything. U-Creds are the main currency within the game, and as such, you'll use it to buy pretty much everything from the various vendors. The one exception is when upgrading your gear. You'll notice there is a different currency you'll need here: components. It's a simple enough system that breaks down into ultimately 3 master currencies: U-Creds, components, and skill points. So what we have here is a dystopian cyberpunk world on the brink of complete collapse, with the corporations, thugs, and gangsters taking over the arcology after the wealthy have dipped. Great. Sounds like a good time. In all seriousness, The Ascent is looking really promising, and need I remind you, this is being developed by a team of 12. By definition, this is an indie game, but it's got some major support, and hopefully, once we get the chance to dive in, we'll see for ourselves how all of these systems connect. The good news is, Livid and myself will be playing The Ascent early, which means we're going to dedicate the time to check out the game in its entirety and bring you all a worth your time review on day 1. So if you want to hear what we think about the game, you absolutely will. If you guys enjoyed this video, we would love some support. We're chasing our yearly goal of 150,000 subscribers, so if you love video games and you want fresh content in your feeds almost every day, please consider hitting that thumbs up and subscribing to the channel. It's still the single best way to help channels like ours reach new audiences. We also invite you to join us on Discord. We've got a great community of around 7,000 members, so check out the link in the description to join today. Finally, if you like everything we stand for here at Legacy Gaming and you want to support us even more, you can now do so by becoming a member. For just a few bucks, you're helping evolve the channel and take our community to that next level. Check out the join button below to learn more. My name is Kodiak, and from everyone here at Legacy Gaming, thanks for watching, and play on.